Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Gerety Insight session with the Danish jury this time. I'm Alex. I'm Emir, editor at Little Black Book, and I'm joined by two members of the Danish jury from the Gerety Awards. We've got Clara Pryor-Nock, who is creative director at Uncle Grey, and we have Clare McNally, creative director at McNally Unlimited. How you doing? Good. So yeah, let's just get straight into the sort of overall vibe of the jury session. Get some good reflections on what went down in that and what sort of ideas it sparked within you. So Clara, let's start with you. What was your kind of overall experience of being on an all-female jury and specifically the Gerety Awards?
I thought it was super interesting. Going into the awards, I was really looking forward to the discussions and see if that was different in any way. Of course, if it leads to different results, but also just being in the jury room to see what's the general vibe. And I thought it was super interesting. And I think one particular thing that I noticed is that in this jury room, there was asked a lot of questions, and actually more questions than I'm used to. So that kind of sparked a different kind of more, I guess, investigative conversation. And to me, that was an interesting vibe going into all of the cases and discussing all of the cases. I don't know. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most, let's say, obviously this is the first time I've ever been on an all-female jury. I think before the most I've had was like a 60-40 split in most juries I've been on, 40% being female. Yeah, so I think, as Clara said, it was very, very nice atmosphere. I think people were much more open to saying, hey, I don't know what this is about. Can someone explain it to me? It was quite relaxed in that sense. And I have to say the one difference I noticed, and this could be a gender thing, it could just be the juries I've been on, I don't know. But what I liked was that in previous juries, I found that a lot of people, predominantly men, have taken a very strong stance on something. And they've said, this is how I see it, boom, boom, boom. And totally not up for discussion and very almost like making a closed statement. And I didn't find any of that on this jury, which I found very refreshing. Of course, you're very entitled to have an opinion. You're very entitled to have a very strong opinion. But I think mostly you should have your opinion, but then also be open to hear what other people's opinions are and how do they balance up with yours. And I found that this jury was very open in that regard and a very nice atmosphere. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, also able to be swayed by the conversations that we had. Like you could come into a discussion with one opinion and then going out of the discussion with a completely different opinion. And I mean, looking at the jury, I don't think I was the only one who experienced that through the discussions.
That's great, because in a jury, obviously, every award show wants to put together a jury that has people with different expertise, with different tastes, and it's so great to be able to exchange those and sort of hear someone's perspective that you might not have considered. So that sounds really productive.
Yeah, I'd say what I was the most curious about was, let's say if there was a piece of work and I was thinking, oh, that does nothing for me, and then somebody else would say, wow, that's really impactful. But I mean, that just makes me go like, what the hell? What did I miss? You know? So I find that really nice to listen. And sometimes, of course, you didn't miss anything. You're just confused. And other times you're like, wow, I never saw it like that. Great. So I think it's wonderful to have your eyes open, but then also to stick to your own opinion as well. It's quite a balance you have to find.
Yeah.
And you saw a lot of work, I'm sure. So what were your sort of overall impressions of it's always like a chance to take the temperature of creativity in these juries, right? Sort of what did you come out of it feeling about sort of creativity right now?
I think one of the big discussions in at least in our jury was around the word woke washing, because we saw a lot of cases with a lot of purpose, and a lot of cases talking about having a purpose. And it seemed like we've moved away from just the awareness part of purpose and actually needing some sort of activation or a story doing role instead of just storytelling. So I think that was the overall takeaway for me when we went through those type of discussions.
Is that one of the things that maybe you had, you were talking about that sort of interrogative, tone? I suppose that would have provoked that, sort of, you see a piece of work that claims to be, very woke and is doing something, or claiming to do something, and then you immediately find yourself asking, did they actually do anything, or are they just saying this to position themselves in a certain way? Was that a big discussion in the jury room then?
That was having when if a brand actually had a story doing idea, then the conversation was around, is this really a great story doing idea? Is it something that the industry is doing already, or is it super original? And around the ideas that didn't have a story doing idea, but was only storytelling, or talking about how woke a company is, we kind of did like a check around the jury room if it provoked people, or I remember some of the jury members, myself included, saying all of the check boxes were being checked, but it wasn't like they were actually going to do anything that would actually matter.
Yeah, I think in the same light as what Clara is talking about, what we saw was, I think, which you can't really say is a bad thing, right? Because I think what we didn't see, luckily, was we didn't see any blatantly sexist, any awfully white ads, or any predominantly male ads that should have had women in them, or predominantly female when they should have had men in them. So that's a good thing, right? So there's definitely been a step forward. But like Clara said, I think what we did see, however, was a lot of box ticking, so we got to have the white person, the black person, the man, the woman, the disabled person, the gay person. And it's so obvious. So I think that hopefully in future brands learn how to balance, showing a very diverse set of people, and you don't have to do it all in one ad. Maybe the campaign, or maybe you could have a story that requires a certain kind of audience that makes sense, rather than just trying to tick all the boxes. So yeah, there was quite a lot of that, but it is a step better than seeing an ad that is blatantly sexist or blatantly racist or whatever, or out of touch with what's happening in culture. So I guess that's a step.
But one thing I do want to mention, though, is that just being woke for woke's sake, I feel like there were a couple of those as well, where it's a company saying, oh, just go into the world and be yourself 100%. And then it's a company that asks people to wear uniforms to work, for example. Like that was it's a horrible brand fit. So in terms of what you're saying has to be the same as what you're actually doing when you're running your business. And there was some really nice conversations around that.
Sure, that certainly sounds like a bit of an idea that someone's had at an agency and then just kind of slapped on the nearest client that they've got to hand, regardless of whether the client is a good fit for that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Be yourself, but please wear a suit.
Yeah. And Claire, I know you mentioned before the panel that you noticed that a lot of the work sort of relied on celebrity talent or sort of well-known songs and things like that. Do you feel like that's a sort of on an uptick at the moment in the industry?
Well, that was the thing. We were talking about it in the jury, and we were like, is this more than usual, or is this just usual, right? I think what surprised us, though, was, everyone's talking about how there's no money, there's no budget anymore, everyone's tight on time and whatever. And yet they seem to have money for very expensive songs, for celebrities, etc. So it's kind of a strange oxymoron. It's like, which is it? Do you have money or do you not have money? And I think it would be much better if they spent that money on agencies creating great concepts, rather than just using celebrities or soundtracks as a shortcut. Because that's what it felt like a lot of the time, like almost zero concept, but fantastic song, or very expensive celeb and not much of an idea. In some cases, of course, they did use a song very effectively. The Teenage Dream for Sandy Hook was really nicely done. But it seems to only really work when they take a song and then re-edit it or recraft it in a different way. So, either the whole slam poetry thing's been done to death. But I think in that case, they had broken it up into the spoken word and crafted it quite well. And then in terms of celebrity, I mean, Amazon used a celebrity quite well in their Mind Reader ad. And then you had Martha Stewart appearing at the end of the TikTok ad, which I just personally thought was kind of cute and fun and made sense, you know. So there were some cases where it made sense, but in other cases, it was just like, wow, that is an expensive song and a terrible ad, you know, so let's not go there. But I think that's been around for time immemorial. I was just surprised that you know, people have the budget for that anymore, because you know, as a creative, I've heard so many times, we can't use that song, it's too expensive. There's no way we can use that guy or that woman, they're too expensive. Yeah, so I don't know. There was quite a lot of it, but now and then it was good, but a lot of the time it was just a shortcut to get eyes on stuff and to get PR, because it does work. That's the problem. You know, I mean, as Clara will say, like the minute we put David Beckham in an ad or you use a famous track, you know, magazines online are talking about it. So it is a good shortcut to PR. So maybe they should just stop giving it PR, and then people will stop doing it.
I think where it worked really well, what we saw is when the celebrity or the song amplified the idea.
Yes.
But the idea didn't start with a celeb or a song.
Sure.
I think in the Martha Stewart case, it worked as the perfect joke at the end, for example. And she was just there for a joke, and that was it. But the whole idea was built around something much bigger than her.
Yeah, and I've just remembered, actually, I think, I forget, sorry, who it was on the jury, but they kept saying, but this is a Super Bowl ad. Every time we commented on the expensive song and whatever. So in line of why do I think it's happening? I do think there is this kind of cliche that, oh, it's a Super Bowl ad, so we have to use a big celebrity or a big song. Yes, to a degree, I guess you have to compete in that arena. But of course, you can also come up with a really amazing concept or use technology in a different way or something. I mean, this would be much better, I think. But I think the Super Bowl was leading to a little bit of that as well.
That's interesting. Do you think it was like part of that's sort of an indicator of a sort of broader trend of sort of hopefully emerging from the pandemic, depending on where we are in the world, everywhere is at different stages. But, you know, budgets tightened, and then everybody hoped there would be this great opening up when everyone wants to spend money on marketing again. Do you think that this is maybe a symptom of that? Great, clients really want to make a big splash now, but maybe slightly directed wrongly.
I don't know when those ads were made. I mean, they probably would have been made in the second wave of the pandemic. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't think we're quite out of it yet. But in line of the pandemic, I'd made a note to myself that I think what did happen was a lot more people using, for example, animation or, you know, stop motion or these kind of ways to get around having a live studio, you know, or actors wearing your very expensive celebrity wearing a mask. So I think what I saw was a couple of ads that I thought were very good with animation. I think there was a bleepers. There was something Nobody is Normal for Childline, which I thought was wonderful stop motion animation. Yeah, and Chipotle, of course, came out with their animation again. Did I say that correctly? I never know how to say it. It's always like a bit of a guess. Something like that. But I think those three, for example, now that you've mentioned the pandemic, I don't think so much that you would see it in terms of songs and celebrities, but I think in terms of the craft of animation and, you know, using that sort of medium as something that you couldn't safely control in a pandemic, that's a positive outcome, I think, because, you know, that's always quite original and fresh. So I did see a little bit of that, which I think could have been pandemic linked.
Great. And when you were sort of more sort of meta level of just being a juror on a creative award show, what sorts of strategies or approaches do you sort of employ when you're doing that? What have you learned from being on juries is useful to think about or to ask? Whichever one. Clara, do you want to go?
Yeah. I think it's all about creating an atmosphere where you can discuss and become smarter and learn something new. So for me, at least, it's all about asking questions. And I feel like everyone was in on that game with this jury. And that was really great. So starting out with a question for the jury, I think is a good way, instead of starting out with I think or what I hate, or so starting out with a question. I think that's the main takeaway from this jury that I'll take with me in other juries.
I think for me, I mean, I think your question, you asked us to go like meta. So we're promoting the brand meta. We're using the word as it is meant to be used. I would hate to do that. So for me, I think in terms of juries, not just this jury, but all juries, what I often like to balance is keeping hold of my own point of view on something, but also being open to what the jury might say. And I think that's quite a difficult balance to get right. And also, that's one thing I like to try and keep an eye on. And the second thing is trying not to be too influenced by what you've seen online already or heard people say. Because, of course, in the olden days, when you saw an ad at Cannes or in a jury or whatever, you'd never seen it before. Can you imagine? So unless it was in your country, you literally had not seen it before. Can you imagine? I mean, so the impact was immediate. But now, we've seen stuff maybe, at LBB, Little Bad Book. We've seen it at Ad Age. We've seen it all over the place. We've heard everybody talking about it. And I think it's quite a trick, to learn to be able to hold on to your own opinion despite public opinion. So if you still really don't think something is working and you have reasons why, I think you need to be able to, in a very balanced way, express that to the jury, or find out, have you missed something? Like, why does everybody loving this? And vice versa. You might love something that nobody is talking about, which you might find very interesting. Like, wow, why is nobody talking about this fantastic ad? So I think it's quite a challenge to balance your own point of view with what's going on publicly or what's popular, because just because something is popular doesn't mean it's good, and just because something's good doesn't mean it's creatively good. Just because something ticks the green box, the sustainability box, whatever, it gets a lot of PR these days, and it doesn't mean that it's creatively or conceptually a brilliant piece of work. So I think these are things I like to red flag when I'm in a jury and keep an opinion on throughout.
That's a very good point. You don't want to give people like me too much credit for the things that we select to give lots of PR to.
But it's true, because everything is in the press already. So who is actually the jury? Even in the results, they always write like, oh, this has been publicized in this publication and this publication. So, I mean, how on earth are you supposed to then say, well, actually, I don't like it? But you've got to remember that those are publications that have said that. They're not the jury. And also the target audience are not the jury either. Of course, they are the client. They are the one you're aiming at. But, if you put a baby in an ad or a kitten, everyone's going to love it. That doesn't mean it's a good piece of work. So I think you have to maintain your integrity as a jury member who is a professional in advertising, trying to raise the standard of the industry.
That's a really good perspective. I'll think about that when I'm think about the power I have when I'm writing.
You have a lot of power.
Sometimes I just write about something because it's got someone that I really like in it. The celebrity.
Exactly. Yeah, but you're like an incognito jury for all of the awards. No pressure.
Sure. Well, that's really nice to know. But and also, this is the Danish jury, and you're not both Danish, but you are both in Denmark, in the Danish ad industry. And so did this process give you any perspective on what Danish creativity is like right now?
I guess I'll take that one.
Clara's Danish.
Well, you've been in Denmark for quite a while.
I've been here for a while, so I'm happy to go after you.
I have to say I was pretty uplifted. I think the Danish industry is doing really good work at the moment, and I think it's good enough work to enter and to compete at the Gerety Awards, at Cannes, at international level. So I was actually I was pretty proud when you benchmark up against the cases that I see every day. I think Danish creativity is in a good place. I do wish that there were more Danish cases and to see more general cases at the Gerety Awards.
No,
and I'm at fault myself. We didn't have time to enter because of a lot of stress. But I think we have maybe that's another thing. We're really, really busy at the moment, the Danish industry. Also, like you said, Alex, it's we're doing a lot of work right now. So there is a lot of people who want Danish creativity.
But I think also we have to remember this is the first time, right, Clara, that the Gerety Awards have been in Denmark.
Yeah.
I think that's also, I think everybody's a little bit like, I think Danish people, I'm a foreigner, so I've lived there for 8 years, or here for 8 years. So Danish people, I find, they beg to differ sometimes, and I think they're quite cautious sometimes, or they want to see the lay of the land first before they just, boldly go forward. So hopefully now they've seen the Gerety Awards, maybe they, can see what kind of work is entered, and they can see a merit in entering this kind of award, because I don't think we saw much Danish work. But as Clara said, it is a pity, because obviously Danish creativity at the moment is just on the up and up. I mean, if you think of maybe you've written about this one, Back Up Ukraine, for example, this kind of work coming out of a country like Denmark is incredible. So I think it would be fantastic if going forward more work was on the plate for the Gerety Awards.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one to shout out. That's quite a recent piece of work.
Yeah, I just snuck it in there.
Yeah. And a lot of the sorts of
I'm not affiliated at all.
No. But it's an interesting one to discuss, actually, because that's a piece of work that is very non-traditional.
Yes.
It's responding to a problem, a very serious problem, but in a very innovative, creative way. It's the sort of work that you sort of go into a jury maybe hoping that you'll encounter, right?
Yeah, because I mean, that was the one thing I missed on this jury was, I'm not making that kind of work. So yeah, it's easy to point fingers, I know, right, from the outside. But that's the kind of work when you see it and you just go like, aha. Because I think, I've been doing a lot of work in Lithuania recently. So, the whole war is much more of an issue there than even in Denmark or anywhere else in the world. They're neighbors. It's right next to Belarus. And when I saw that work, I mean, instead of feeling like, why are you kind of entering awards on such a touchy subject such as a war, which I do think is very weird, to be honest. I think that, to back up a country's history and culture in 3D is incredible. I mean, to enter it for awards, okay, we can talk about that. Is that a good idea to win awards off the back of a war? I don't know. But I think it's big thinking, and it's right up there with, digital fashion, which they've also done. And I think both of those kind of recategorize the category. And I think that's fantastic. So yeah, very high level of conceptual, and no celebrities and no big songs.
And actually doing something to solving a problem. Exactly. I think that it does that really, really well.
Exactly.
Definitely.
And what I also like about these kind of ideas is you can, I'm always talking about ideas that you can then just tell somebody about, and they kind of get it very quickly. And that's that kind of an idea. You just can explain it in 5 seconds and everybody gets it. And there's not that much of that kind of work around at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I remember.
And I think it's important. Sorry, I think it's important to enter that type of work into awards, because it's the type of work that'll show what's in store for advertising in the future. Yeah. So and I think that's what awards should do. It should pay tribute to the type of work that we want to see more of, and we want to see more of that type of work, right? That's
a very, very good argument. Yeah. I mean, that's a brilliant piece of work to spotlight. Is there any other work from the session? Obviously, we're not going to sort of tease what you all voted for or anything, but just things that personally stuck with you, that you saw in the jury room or that you discussed that we haven't discussed yet.
Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay, I had to write these down because we saw a lot of work. It's hard to remember. So I have to be honest. I don't think that there was a piece of work for me that just jumped out as much as, let's say, a piece like that or womb stories. Or personally, I didn't see that. I know that we didn't see all the work. So just remember, we didn't see everything. Yeah. But the pieces of work that I really liked, that I thought were very different and made me go, oh, hello, and I'll probably remember them afterwards. I really liked the animation and the way they handled Nobody is Normal for Childline. I just thought it was very fresh and different. And I'm a sucker for stop motion, as many people are. I didn't quite understand exactly how it worked, but I thought Eat a Swede would definitely get PR. It was very interesting. And I really liked, as I've said before, some of the animation on like beepers and Chipotle and stuff. And then, of course, Burberry Open Spaces was very nice. But then I remembered actually the urban version of that in the city was actually a bit stronger, which I actually forgot about. I almost thought I was watching part 2 of that. And I'm sure Clara is going to mention it as well. But, the piece with Camilla Harris, Today We Rise. I thought what I really liked about that was, you can say what you like. It's a female jury, you got the first female vice president. I think it's the first time I've actually done a story on Instagram myself personally for something that's political. And it was that. I was very just moved by the moment. So was it a particularly great piece of advertising? Yeah, I don't know, because it was just the whole moment and the fact that they used it that I loved. So I thought for me, those pieces were very good. And then I think there was one piece of cinematography called Mario that I actually really liked. I wouldn't say it used anything revolutionary, but it was a very high level of cinematography and craft and storytelling. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, a great selection box there with various different kinds of work.
Yes, I tried to remember the ones that just stood out. And sorry, Emily as well for Netflix. I thought that was what I liked about that. It was just a cheeky little take on a name. But actually, if you watch the videos and that again, you see that there's actually quite a high level of craft in the typography and the way they handled it and the way it's filmed. And it's just kind of cute and fun. So I really like the lightness of that one. We don't see much of that anymore because everything's got a purpose and it's very heavy sometimes. So it was really fun and light. Sorry, that's it. That's the end of my list, Clara.
I want to echo the Kamala Harris UN work. And also, I think, and because it was such a special jury moment for me, just feeling something and having just a little wet, I'm not crying, you're crying moment. And then looking around the jury and then having everyone feel the exact same way. And I think that was actually one of the cases that we didn't really discuss that much. I think we just felt it, all of us, and was just glued to the screen. So that was, I think that was really special to me. And also craft-wise, I just want to highlight the Burberry thing. I forgot the name, but where they're all flying. Yes, thank you. I think that was craft-wise, that was beautifully done, and I think that really deserves a tribute.
Actually, there was one more, if I can mention one more.
Yeah.
It was a real classic. It could have been made in the 90s almost, except for what's in it, like a visual pun, and it was the windmill from Mercedes-Benz.
Yes, that was a
for me, what I liked about that was I've worked a lot on BMW back in the day, and I just saw it and I was like, that feeling you get where you just go, clever. And actually, we did not see a lot of that at all, like this clever advertising. I don't know where that's gone, but I thought that was just quick and instant, and also it's for renewable energy, and they made a film out of it later and entered it into 2 categories. So it wasn't just a visual pun; it was more than that. It was discovering the logo of your brand in a very unusual place. So I thought that was quite good as well.
The simplicity of that, and I love an idea that can just travel everywhere with an image. I mean, they didn't even have to do a case film. It could be a case GIF or whatever. Yeah. But it was so simple, so beautiful, and they told everything in one picture.
There's very little of that these days, hey, Clara? I mean, yeah, when I was working in the noughties, the early noughties, I mean, that's what we did, we only had TV, poster, whatever. A lot of the stuff you were coming up with was that kind of work, and you were generating it within a week on no budget. So it would be actually quite nice to see a little bit more of that now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think those type of ideas, when you see it, you can't unsee it. Yeah, it's that was beautifully and executed really well as well. Yeah.
Great.
And for me, I had just one more case I have to just touch upon. It was actually a case that generated some discussion, and that was when I think it was a case that we might have disagreed on, and maybe that was the outcome of of the voting. I don't know, but it was for Suncorp, and it was called One House to Save Many, and it was a model house created to withstand all sorts of climate change, and it was for an insurance company, I think, to kind of put out the results, kind of like when Tesla puts out their sorry, I forgot. But all of their patents.
Yep.
Yeah. It had that kind of, yeah. It's really hot in Copenhagen for once. It had that grand thought to me, and I think that was pretty brilliant.
But also, I think what we
give a
discussed
shout
in
out.
the jury, Clara, do you remember, was that it seemed like they were really trying to solve the problem, because, you know, insurance company, they don't just want you to, you know, suffer from an avalanche or a flood or whatever and make lots of money or whatever. They were actually trying to solve the problem of even having your house destroyed in the first place. And I think that is an amazing thing to do, even if it goes against the need of your company. You're doing good in society in a very active way, which was great.
Yeah, instead of just being an insurance company, you're being a preventive company in some way. And I thought that was brilliant for an insurance company to take that stand.
That's amazing. Yeah, being able to sort of go that little bit deeper into when I say purpose, I mean literally like the business purpose, right?
Yeah.
Of a client. That's amazing to see.
It could change their business.
Yeah, it's what so many people at agencies want to get their hands on, I think, you know, being able to do ideas like that with clients. So is there anything I haven't given you a chance to say? Any final thoughts on the work or the experience? You've both been brilliant, because it's only a panel of two, so you've
talking for four.
But I think we've talked about all of the cases and the ideas that's been close to my heart, and the ideas that we wanted to give a shout out to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the only thing would be, you know, the whole concept of Gerety Awards, you know, being an all-female panel. I think for me, that is an interesting discussion to have going forward, because I think it has merit, but at the same time, it would be wonderful if we, you know, can also just have juries where people are able to be open to different types of work and for different target audiences, and be grown up enough and educated enough to actually like give it the respect that it deserves with an open mind. So one of the things I think going forward would be nice is, I think I mentioned it to you, Alex, already, was this article by Nick Asprey where he talks about cognitive empathy. And I think that that's a skill set that not just jurors, but advertising people in general should start to acquire, because if you have cognitive empathy and you're able to actively try and think about why, for example, this advertisement would appeal to older people, or this would appeal to, I don't know, disabled people or whatever, and you're not that kind of category yourself. I think the more we can do that as an industry, the better, because we can't be everything. I cannot be a man and a gay person and a tree and everything else at the same time. We are what we are, right? So we're limited in that regard. But I think we have to learn to be able to think like other target groups in our work and in juries. That's
a great point. Yeah, and I think the impression that you've given of the Gerety jury is a sort of enviable one, and it's one that I think there are a few lessons that I'd maybe like to bring to the next jury room I'm in. So I hope that even though I'm a man, I wouldn't be allowed on the Gerety jury. I can take it.
Maybe one day. Have to ask.
One day, yeah.
You can be a diamond in the rough.
Right? Yeah. Maybe that's a new category. Yeah.
A brand new cut.
But thank you so much for taking the time, Claire and Clara. It's been a fascinating discussion.